This week on Head to Head, The Mandalorian has a big spoiler.
You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
We're your hosts for this podcast. So I was actually reading the other day about this whole thing about the Rise of Skywalker and what it originally was going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
They did an interview with Carrie Fisher's brother. The heck was his name? David Fisher or something like that? Yeah. Well, apparently, Leia was supposed to not only be like a really big part of this whole, Rise of Skywalker thing, but she's going to be a Jedi. She's actually going to, have her own lightsaber, use a bunch of force powers. Like it was going to be revealed that she was going to be the last Jedi. And I mean, I'm telling you, man, when I was, reading this whole thing and everything, I was just like, man,
yeah, I
really wish that they could have made that movie.
Well, in the trailer, the second trailer, not the featurette, but the actual trailer, they actually said that that scene where Rey is actually like that lightsaber kind of flies in her hand. Mm-hmm. They say it was actually supposed to be Leia who threw it at her. It was like this. She was actually training Rey.
Oh, so it wasn't like Rey was using the Force to call it back, or
I mean, she was, but I mean, it was like in a moment where like she was like Leia was basically training Rey on what we believe to be in the forest moon of Endor.
Yeah,
and I guess we kind of catch them in the middle of a training session or whatnot, and I guess the script said that Leia kind of threw the lightsaber, and then of course like Rey is kind of jumping and training, and she's trying to make her more aware, so she turns and looks up and catches the lightsaber, and
it just makes me wonder, like, what, because how this whole thing was basically just a bunch of unused footage from I think mostly 7, but some of 8. It makes me wonder, like, what they were able to use from that and create the story, because they basically said they were going to write this whole movie around that unused footage. But I mean, I just remember that when I first saw, this article or whatever talking about, it's going to not only be a Leia-centric movie, which we actually knew. I mean, everybody, Han Solo was the focal point of 7, Luke was the focal point of 8, and now Leia was going to be the focal point of 9. I didn't know it was going to be that cool, though.
Yeah.
She's going to be wielding a lightsaber. She's going to be doing a lot of cool stuff.
Well, I think but if you really think about it, it makes the most sense because, you have Rey, who for the first time, outside of Princess Leia, like Princess Leia was a star, definitely, but she wasn't like the lead. But Rey is the lead of this new sequel trilogy. And so what better way to have, to teach you the ropes, but Princess Leia, you know what I mean? And that,
totally.
And I think that narrative is just really cool. It's powerful because I know what they're trying to do with Lucasfilm as far as they were trying to show some diversity, especially, when it comes to the sexes. So, for the most part, Star Wars has been a male dominated, entity, but now with Rogue One, with Erso, and then now you have Rey, you kind of like spearheading the sequel trilogy. It makes the most sense to have Rey have that big role.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it just makes me wish that, I mean, it was tragic that Carrie Fisher passed, period. But It's like she had to go. If only it could have just been after 9.
That's how I felt.
Just to see that, man.
It's almost kind of like how we felt about like Michael Jackson with This Is It. Like you almost wanted to see the complete show.
Yeah, exactly.
Like let him do one concert,
right? Then, like at least one concert,
one full concert.
Release,
exactly.
Because it's true. I mean, when you actually saw like all that behind the scenes stuff, and the way they edited the thing together, I thought was really cool because you kind of got a feel for what that concert would probably have been like. But to actually have seen that, it's a good point.
And to that, I really do, because, every time we watched a trailer or anything dealing with Rise of Skywalker, we only get those 2 shots of Leia when she's hugging Rey and then when she's holding that medal. So it makes you wonder, one, how much footage do they have, and are they just showing us those because they have a lot more than what they have been showing us, but they want to reserve it because it's a big thing?
I'll tell you.
Or do we have a whole lot more?
I think we do. And I'll tell you why I believe that. Because there was another article that I had seen probably around... I don't think they had been shooting the Rise of Skywalker long, but it was basically alluding to the fact that they were actually taking some of the scenes with her and like kind of cutting her out and putting different backgrounds in. And, you know, because they were talking about the technology. They were talking about how they were able to do this and it was seamless, and everybody was just like really blown away by how, you know, completely seamless the technology was. And like, oh, it looked like she was really in these backgrounds. And, you know, I mean, it's just one of those things where I can't help but wonder, one, what was the movie we were supposed to get?
Yeah, that's what I really want to know.
You know?
I want to see that script.
Yes. And then two, the movie that we're actually getting, like, yeah, how, and, you know, we're going to find out in like a month, but...
Yeah, but we don't know what to compare it to.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, I really wonder what they're actually going to do with the character now that, unfortunately, she passed away and they had to use all this unused footage. I have no doubt in my mind it's going to be cool, but... Yeah, what would have been?
That's the big question, man.
Well, let's go to the Cantina and discuss it.
All right. Well, one of the cool things I've also kind of picked up on, you know, we actually haven't seen them in the actual trailer, but the Sith Troopers.
The Sith Troopers.
Yeah.
These guys are cool.
Yeah, these guys look sweet. I mean, I thought the First Order ones were sweet when they first came out. But these guys are like...
Yeah, the Sith Troopers, I got to admit, you know what? They actually have me really curious because... And this goes into the greater Palpatine discussion. Because, you know, it was like we were talking about, I think like a week or two ago, where we were speculating about what Palpatine's role was going to be, and... You know, it almost looked like he wasn't going to be taking over the First Order. It looked like he was going to be going up against the First Order, and he was resurrecting the Empire and all that. I think it was last week, actually, where our Return of the Empire episode.
Yeah.
Well, in that's where you have to wonder where these guys fit in, because they're not Imperial Stormtroopers. They're this new Sith Trooper thing, and you're kind of like, okay, are they a new... Is he taking like this whole Sith thing? Because you were saying, I think, that they're supposed to have like force powers or something.
Yeah. So, you know, here's the thing. I'm speculating that, you know, Palpatine not only because, you know, the Sith were once an army.
Yeah.
And so there's been rumors, and it makes sense to me that he's actually trying to create like the Sith army again. And I think these particular troopers are either have or they're learning how to use the Force. And I think that, you know, that's why they get the title Sith Trooper, because they're actually studying the ways of the Sith, not just protecting a Sith. Because if that were the case, you know, you would have like the
Royal Guards.
The Royal Guards, like, why weren't they Sith? You know what I'm saying? Like, they knew how to combat Jedi.
Yeah.
Or face Jedis in combat.
Yeah.
But they never had the title Sith to it. Sith was a title that had to be earned.
Well, that's what's so intriguing.
So that's why I think that...
Yeah, why are they called Sith Troopers? Now, it's true, but remember that the Sith were an actual race of people.
True.
And, you know, the Dark Lords of the Sith or whatever, they started out where they used the dark side and they were able to conquer them. And, you know, I think the Sith actually, like, almost worshiped them in a way, and then they just sort of adopted that. And then when people think of Sith, they think of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're...
Yeah, this is a whole nother level.
Well, yeah, so like I think that they're more on the religion side as opposed to the race.
Right.
So I think they're following the whole Sith Lords as far as the Sith religion and culture, so to speak.
Well, it's just weird because, you know, if you think about it, during the whole time of the original trilogy, because, you know, you can I would count the prequel trilogy, but, you know, Palpatine was still kind of in a dual role, and he still really was even in the original trilogy, because he was based as the governmental head of the Republic or of the Empire. And I think what we're seeing now is he can come out as just a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
Because remember, the average citizen didn't know he was a Sith Lord.
Right.
Now he can actually come out and be like, you know what? I'm this all-powerful Dark Lord of the Sith. Now here's all my Sith Troopers and my Sith this, almost like a Batman, you know? It's like the Batmobile, the Bat Jet, the Bat Cave, the Bat everything. Well, now he could do that with the Sith.
True, but you know what? I'm also thinking, too, that with this whole Sith thing, because you kind of have to wonder, like, all right, you know, why would he need a Sith army per se?
Right.
So, which leads me to believe that, and once again, I've heard rumors about this as well, that the temple where Luke was training, all those kids or all those students didn't die.
Oh, you think that the Jedi students or whatever are now...
I think that eventually they kind of like, all right. Once
but how would they have found Palpatine, though? You know,
I don't think they would. I don't think they found I think Palpatine knows that they're still out there.
Okay.
And I think that because he knows, like, okay, they have a potential, especially with Rey being out there. There's other kids like Sith, like Broom Kid. You know, those people are out there who can still rise up because, as Snoke said, you know, when darkness, you know, rises, light rises to meet it. So he has to have people in place who can actually combat. And I think that's the difference that he has now is that before he kind of had mass, he had volume of troopers, but now I don't think he has as much anymore.
Well, right, because he's not the leader.
He's not the leader anymore.
You know, yeah.
So now he has to just figure out, like, okay, well, if I can't meet you with sheer mass as far as volume of troopers and whatnot, I have to beat you with power.
Well, yeah,
who's
but
more
I mean,
powerful than him.
think about the trailer, though. I mean, there was a lot of Star Destroyers. I actually think there's almost more Star Destroyers now than there were, you know, in the Empire. I mean, granted, I know that's not necessarily the case because they were everywhere in the galaxy, but you know what I mean, though. I mean, it's like it wasn't like he was lacking.
I mean, don't get me. He had a decent size. Yeah, don't get, you know, but I still think, like, you know, if he's going to, but he has to fight a war on two fronts. You know, he has to fight. If he's going to take over, he's got to take out the First Order or get them to join him. And then he still has to, you know, now the rebellion or the resistance, I should say, has now grown in the Rise of Skywalker.
Well, and that's going to be interesting,
planets have kind of aligned themselves.
Right. But when we last left the resistance, you know, there was like 5 people left or something stupid. I mean, but here's the thing that I find really interesting about the politics of the whole, I guess, the sequel trilogy in general, because the rebellion was actually almost trying to restore the Republic to the way that it was during the time of the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they were rebelling against the Empire.
Right.
And then, of course, they became the New Republic. What I find interesting is the Resistance essentially split off from the New Republic. You know, they were kind of seen as radicals.
Mm-hmm.
So the New Republic really wasn't all about them. They weren't like the Republic's army or anything like that. I mean, they were operating outside. It was almost like they were the rebellion against their own republic in a way. So it's really interesting. It's going to be really interesting in the Rise of Skywalker to see, you know, where the Republic is, because, you know, we've been focusing on what happened with the Resistance and the New Order, but it's kind of like, well, yeah, you remember when they destroyed Hosnian Prime and kind of wiped out the whole center of government?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that now?
Well, I think that's where we're going to basically, and I think that's that whole meeting that we see in the trailer with Lando kind of sitting at the table. I think that's really like, okay, we have to declare, like, we're going to fight against this new order, you know, the First Order, basically. So we have to just kind of band together, because if we don't, you know, what's going to be left?
Yeah.
So that's one. But then it's like, okay, I think once that, and I think that's where Lando comes into play. I think he's kind of leading the charge in that regard. Kind of like that rhyme there. That charge in that regard. Anyway, so I think that's his job.
He'll be here all night, folks.
So, but I think the other part is Leia is going to actually help establish the government piece, and I think that would make sense if she's not in the rest of the movie. You see what I'm saying? Because, like, she can pass it to Lando, like, Lando, I need you to lead these people because I know you have that leadership quality. We've done this before.
So
you
basically,
have the
you're saying that Lando would almost be like a military commander or something.
Exactly. He kind of rides with Poe, and they kind of take on everything.
And then she can work on maybe rebuilding the government. Well, we'll have to see. What about you guys? What do you think? Do you think that, well, actually, this kind of went beyond the scope of even our Sith Trooper thing. I was going to say, what do you guys? And then I realized, like, wait a minute, this isn't even what we were talking about.
Not initially.
But hey, I mean, what do you think about the whole role of the New Republic versus the Resistance versus the First Order versus the Sith?
Yeah, what do you think these whole Sith Troopers
do you guys think that these Sith Troopers are essentially an extension of Palpatine's army? Do you think that, they're just protecting him? I mean, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, and, we'll actually address your thoughts on a future show, I think.
Yep.
All right, what do we got next?
All right, so our good old buddy, Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi himself.
Yes.
Finally has admitted that he's been lying to us the whole time.
Yeah, it's so JJ of him. It's funny, though, because I don't... I know. I read that too, where it was like, yeah, he admitted he was lying. It was on the Tonight Show.
Yeah, I actually watched it on YouTube. I actually watched his interview with Conan O'Brien, and
so it's Conan.
Yeah, he was on there with. Well, he's actually on a couple of them because I think he was on Conan. I think.
But which one is the one where they were talking about? Oh yeah, he was lying to everybody, and he admits it now.
Well, yeah, he did. He basically said, he hated, because the funny thing about it is like he knew for years that he was going to play.
Because, there was that film. They were going to do the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot who exactly was supposed to write it or direct it, but they had a director, they had a writer, it was going to be one of the next standalone films.
Yeah, and so now that they've moved it to the new streaming service, Disney Plus, I think that's great, one, and I think that, it's going to be really cool that I believe there's 6 episodes they're going to do with that show.
Yeah, it was like 6 or 8, I think.
Yeah, 6 or 8 episodes or what have you, and it's really going to just kind of chronicle that time period, between during like right before the events of Episode 4.
Now, do you think Vader's going to be in it? Well, here's the thing. Let's do this.
Okay.
Do you think Vader's going to be in it? And then the second part of that is, do you think Vader should be in it?
Well, definitely I think Vader should be in it because that's the time period. I don't think I think they're going to use Vader. If they use him, they're going to use him sparingly. I think it just depends on, one, how long the series goes. Do they have once again?
Yeah, is it
how many seasons?
Like a 6 to 8 episode thing, and it's like one and done, or is it going to be multiple seasons?
Exactly.
I would actually lean on the one and done.
Yeah, I guess so, because if you really think
granted, I know what you're going to say. It's like, well, if it's successful, it's going to go on for like 10 years. But
yeah, it's going to be like 24. Everything is happens in one day or something crazy. But I don't know. It's
like a Star Wars 24 or
exactly.
Something.
Yeah, but I think I'll put it to you this way. I know Vader is definitely going to have to be mentioned.
Oh, he'll definitely be mentioned.
He'll definitely be mentioned. And I think we might see, I think they may do one of those kind of things. I've been, don't judge me, but you know how you and I were really fans of Smallville.
Oh, yeah.
So
big time fans of Smallville. If any of you guys out there Smallville fans, comment section. I want to hear about it.
So I've recently, like I said, don't judge me. I've been watching this whole new Supergirl thing. And it's actually kind of cool. It's kind of like
No,
Smallville.
I don't.
It's kind of like Smallville a little bit.
I think I watched like an episode or two of it. My whole thing with basically DC's the television universe, like there's Arrow, there's now of course Gotham. You and I were watching that all the time. We love that show,
right?
Even though you haven't seen the last season yet either, have you? One day,
right?
But there's all these great shows, but I'm afraid if I start watching them, I'm going to get into them, and then I'm not going to have time, and it's like there's too much to do, and
so I usually try to plow through a couple episodes right before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool is that they show Superman, but they show him from these weird perspectives.
Oh yeah.
So when he's dropping Kara off to the Danvers, house, you get the camera angle from behind.
Okay.
Of him holding his little girl's hand as he's walking. So you never see the man in the suit, really. At least thus far. I'm only on season 1. And then there's a scene where, she got into a bit of a trouble and Superman had to actually come save her. but she was kind of like knocked out and kind of foggy. So you could see like a blurred out Superman kind of fighting the guy. So I was like,
okay, that's
so
cool.
I think they could do that with Kenobi. Like if you're going to have Vader in it, I said all that to say, if you're going to put Vader in there, I don't think they're going to, really have him give any big thing. But I think if you're going to see him, it's maybe on the Death Star walking past. Or
yeah, just kind of like some incidental types.
Yeah,
stuff,
he might
right?
be talking to one of the, admirals or something like that. So we see and we know his presence is felt there, but I don't think.
Or like you said, maybe they just mention him. Mm-hmm. But as a side note, did you hear about that whole big like crossover thing they're doing with the DC thing where I don't remember if it's Arrow, Supergirl, it's one of the shows where they're actually trying to they're doing that, what's that one storyline where they had like the different universes and...
Oh, like almost like an X-Men meets
yeah, it's
Spider-Man.
Sort of like that. I mean, it was a big comic book thread. I remember that. And they're going to do it in the television universe. So they're approaching, like, for instance, they got Tom Welling coming back as Superman. Mm-hmm. They got Brandon Routh coming back as Superman. And they've got... Well,
it should just be Bizarro.
Well, no. What it is it's the multiple universes. And so it's kind of like a convergence of all these different universes.
Weird.
So they're actually bringing back all these actors. Like they're trying to get Michael Keaton as Batman. They're trying to get, like all these guys that have once
played the roles,
to come back and actually play them. And a lot of them have signed on. They tried to get Michael Rosenbaum to be Lex Luthor again, but he wouldn't do it because of the money or something. But, yeah, it's just an interesting side note that they're doing this. But
yeah, we definitely have to talk about more about that off air.
Yes. But I actually agree, though, that with Vader, they don't necessarily have to do anything like spectacular with them. Although, I will say this. I do think he and Obi-Wan should meet again.
Yeah, I mean, because, he always delivers that line, in episode 4, we meet again at last. When I left you, I was better learning. Now I'm the master.
Right.
And it's like only master of evil Darth.
And we assume that that's episode 3, but it doesn't sound like it. The other thing is, and it's actually more, I think, to the point, also in episode 4, when Obi-Wan is talking to Luke, and he's like, well, he's more machine now than man and all this other stuff. It's like, well, how do you know?
Well, I mean, of course, you probably have seen...
Don't forget that when Darth Vader came onto the scene, nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew it was Anakin Skywalker.
Well, yeah, but I mean, no one has the Force either.
But Obi-Wan was basically on Tatooine. He'd have no idea. It almost sounds like there was another, like in between 3 and 4, there was another time where they met, or the whole Obi-Wan once thought as you do and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Almost like Obi-Wan was trying to get him to turn back and all that. It would make sense if they met and Obi-Wan tried to get him back. Yeah, and it didn't work out.
I could see that. I mean, there's room for that, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean that. I think that if they want to go in that direction, I think they should have that in the Obi-Wan series. But I don't necessarily consider Ewan McGregor though lying about his role. I mean,
yeah, like he said, because he had to, like, because people asked him direct questions, and he had to say, "Well, I don't know," or he knew,
right?
But it's just like.
I mean, I guess from that standpoint, then yeah, he was.
Yes, from a certain point of view, he's living up to his character.
Long segment, but yes.
Well, he's still living up to his character.
That's true. He's practicing.
But yeah, I think I'm glad he can finally let the cat out the bag, so to speak. He can finally have that out.
Yeah, that he can talk about it, and he can. I'm really looking more forward though to when they can actually go into some detail about the series and what it's going to be about. I mean, we know who's directing it. We know a lot of these different details, but we don't actually know
the premise of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we know the time period too.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, I've been hearing a lot of rumblings that Liam Neeson's going to come back as Qui-Gon.
That would be cool.
Well, I think that's necessary because, Yoda made such a big deal about, hey, I got some work for you.
Yeah.
On Tatooine.
From your old master.
And, right, exactly. I mean, they kind of set that up.
Right.
So it would be ridiculous if they didn't feature him in some shape. And I hear that Liam Neeson's actually
on board to do it.
Yeah, he's open to come back. So.
Well, yeah, man, the other thing, too, is that I would love for them to actually, one thing I would love to see in this is for him to or for them to delve into that whole force disappearing thing.
Yeah. Like, how did he learn that?
Because because when we last saw Qui-Gon, I mean, he was like being, cremated. So,
well, the thing is that we know that Qui-Gon learned how to, come back basically as a Force ghost. But yeah, I mean, the thing that was interesting, and, Luke's disappearing at the end of The Last Jedi kind of made the Obi-Wan thing make more sense. Because at first, I mean, I don't know about you guys, I don't know about you, but when I first saw, A New Hope, I assumed that that's what happened when a lightsaber hit you.
Yeah, and you vaporized.
That you just vaporized.
Yeah, me too.
And then you learn, well, no, that's not exactly how it works. And so you're kind of like, okay, well, then how did he... It's almost like he went one with the Force when the thing went through him. Like, because he kind of disappeared before...
He timed that perfectly. I mean, Obi-Wan's got impeccable timing, man. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, like... Can you imagine that they actually hit him and he didn't time it perfectly? Like, I mean, you would probably...
Right?
Because, when he got stabbed, he got kind of nicked by Dooku in Attack of the Clones, his arm and his leg. But, when I first saw it as a kid, I thought the same as you did, where I just thought that's what happens. And then, of course, Vader stepping on the robe. I thought he was just adding insult. All right, yeah, you're definitely gone. Type thing.
Well, and you gotta look at it from Vader's perspective. Like, what, he's all stepping on it. Like, where'd he go?
Yeah. Like,
what?
This is interesting.
You gotta wonder if he went back to Palpatine too, and like, hey man, the weirdest thing happened when I was fighting Obi-Wan. And it's like, have you ever seen this?
They're all eating dinner.
Like the dude just disappeared on me.
Like, how's your day? Hey man, look. Quick question. Have you ever seen this before?
Exactly. Palpatine's all like, well, did you, it's like, yeah, I swung the saber.
Yeah, I
made some contact. I mean, look, his robe's burnt up. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to wonder, that conversation.
Got to hit him with the Han Solo line. Like, I didn't hit it that hard. Must have such a stroke mechanism on him or something.
It's like, I never saw that. You know what that's all about? I mean.
Who cares? Finish your dinner.
Exactly. It's kind of like, I mean, it just makes me wonder too, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, how did he learn it? Mm-hmm. From whom? It had to be Qui-Gon, obviously, but, or maybe Yoda.
Well, here's the thing though. One, was Qui-Gon the first one to do it?
Yeah, that's true.
And then, because how did he, because it's not like he...
Right, it's not like it's in the Jedi library or something that we know of.
Maybe, like I said, maybe it was. He just, because there's a bunch of those texts and maybe he just stumbled across it or something. I don't know, but...
Well, and Yoda did mention that, hey, I've got work for you to do and, there's all that. But here's the thing that I wonder too, is like, while Obi-Wan was on Tatooine, you got to wonder if he ever talked to Yoda somehow.
Yeah.
Because they are both in flesh and blood at that point. I mean, did he contact him on Dagobah? It's like, there's just so many unanswered questions that I think the Obi-Wan series could really go into and it could be a pretty fun ride.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that would really be cool. You got, like I say, it just depends on where they're going to start the story.
Yeah.
Because, you still got that whole thing with Darth Maul, like, are we going to see that in live action or is it past that?
You know what? That's a good point, too, because that's closer to episode 4. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like you said, it really depends on where they start the series.
Exactly, and where they're going to end.
Which, of course, is going to depend on how many seasons they want to go.
Exactly.
If it's just a 6-episode arc, it could just be...
a one-off and that's it.
And it could just take us maybe up to the point in Rebels where we meet them. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good question for you guys. What do you guys think? You guys think that well, first of all, when do you guys think that this whole Obi-Wan series is going to start? Do you think it's going to be, like right after episode 3? Do you think it's going to be like maybe a little bit into it or maybe like a little before episode 4? Let us know in the comments section. Let us know what you think.
Oh, before we move on,
okay.
I was watching that. Remember how they did the fight scene between Vader and Obi-Wan? How they redid it, and it was like really awesome.
Man, we're gonna have to now. We got to put that in the links. Thanks.
Sorry, but no. So I love the thing that they did at the very end of that because I watched it again like the other night in preparation for all this. Like I was like, I want to watch that thing again, and because I remember something from it. And yes, this is exactly what happened. I love this version of it because after he stepped on the road, after he allegedly killed Obi Wan, you know, then you hear like, "Run, Luke, run." On the other side of the door, Vader was looking. Vader was looking around like, Kenobi, like, wait a minute. And I love that part because it was kind of like,
yeah, which one are you, Luke?
Yeah, like, he was like, wait a minute, why do I still feel his presence even though I just killed him? Like that that is kind of like a mystery to Vader. So I'm like, that's really.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That was pretty cool that they put that in that version because that's not in the actual theatrical.
I know, and I really wish that.
And I wish they did put that in there.
Kind of like a special edition thing or something that they could have. Yeah, right. That they could have put that in there because that scene was just so epic, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cool, fan base stuff that they do.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now we can move on.
All right, now we can move on.
Even though it's still about Kenobi. So we do have the director of Kenobi.
That's right.
Miss Deborah Chow. And I think this is really interesting and cool because...
Yeah, we're actually going to continue our conversation about Kenobi now. That's why I wanted to not get too ahead of ourselves. But...
Right. Well, I guess all those questions we could just ask her.
Yeah, right.
But I think that this is really cool that Deborah Chow is doing it because, once again, you're kind of showing the diversity in the Star Wars community as far as directors, having a female director direct.
Well,
Kenobi.
The interesting thing about it, from what I understand, she directed like 1 or 2 episodes of The Mandalorian or something.
Yeah, she's actually part of that.
I apparently liked her so much.
They loved her. Yeah.
Not just have 1 or 2 episodes. Here's all of Kenobi. Go do it.
You got the whole series.
You got the whole series, which is really unusual in a TV series. Usually they'll do like different directors for every episode, or you might get a director that will either come back periodically, or maybe they do like an arc or something. And
sometimes the cool thing about this is I found out this little tidbit of information. Guess who else directed the episode?
Okay, I know Filoni did. Favreau's directing one in season 2. All right, who?
Our good old buddy Apollo Creed.
Oh, yeah.
Carl Weathers.
Read that. I did read that.
Yeah. Carl Weathers is actually directing.
It's all in the hips. Everybody forgets about the Happy Gilmore stuff.
Right. Yeah, but I love the fact that they're, giving him a shot at that, too, just to kind of see his perspective on and his take on this whole
I'm looking forward to his character, actually.
Yeah, his character looks really cool. So is Giancarlo Esposito. He's another person who has directed some stuff as well.
Oh, Ming-Na Wen now, her being in it. She played Chun-Li in the Street Fighter movie. That's where I think a lot of people... She was actually in a lot of other stuff, too. That's just where I remember her the most, but... Yeah,
man, she looks just like her, too.
I know.
They cast that movie.
Actually, that movie was cast really, really well.
Yeah, man.
Because everybody looked like they just jumped out of the video game on that one. I was like all about that. But I mean, I really thought that. I forgot what else I saw her. I saw her in a couple other things, and I'm like, you know what? She's actually pretty good. Like, she's a good actress.
Yeah.
So I think she's going to bring a lot to the role. I think she plays an assassin or something.
Okay. Sweet.
And I mean. It's going to premiere in a couple of days.
Yeah, man.
So, we're going to find out. But, I mean, to actually find out, though, that they were so impressed with her that they just handed her this whole series really makes me wonder where this is going to go. Because now it's going to be the vision of one director.
Well, yeah, but see, once again, it's just... And I hate to be the, play devil's advocate on the other side, but you just hope that... They really have a true vision as far as where they've actually planned this stuff.
You know what, though? I don't sense that they're going to make the same mistakes in television. I think that they're doing the television part right.
Kathleen Kennedy once thought as you do.
Well, I mean, because first of all, it's Favreau's thing.
Yeah.
We all know him.
And Kathleen is more on the film side anyway.
Yeah, she's more on the film side. And I mean... honestly, everybody forgets. I mean, she's probably one of the best producers in the business. So, I mean...
Definitely. She's definitely a heavyweight in that.
And, let's face it. I mean, every one of the movies that she's made has made like over $1 billion.
Home runs.
Except for Solo. But even Solo's made a ton of money. If it were anything other than Star Wars, it wouldn't be considered a flop.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think that I think they're actually doing everything right in the television realm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who knows? Maybe we'll watch The Mandalorian and go, oh, yeah, this wasn't really good. But I don't know, man. For everything that I've seen,
it looks absolutely
it just
amazing.
looks like it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be everything that Star Wars fans have wanted.
Yeah.
It feels like the original trilogy to me. It looks like it has compelling characters. It looks like it's going to expand the universe, but yet pay homage to, the characters and everything that we've grown to love. So I have high hopes for it. And because of that, I have high hopes for the Obi Wan series, especially with Ewan McGregor returning too.
Yeah. I think that's going to be really...
Yeah, I cannot wait. Well, what about you guys? Do you think that Deborah Chow is a good choice as a director for the series? Are you guys familiar with any of her work? Let us know in the comment section what you guys think. Love to hear from you. Oh, you can also hit us up at Head to Head SW on Instagram and Twitter. We'd like to hear from you there too. All right, what do we got next?
Next, we have Duel of the Fates. Which is your favorite Sith lightsaber?
Favorite Sith lightsaber?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I think we did on another podcast, a lightsaber, like what was our favorite lightsaber design or something?
Yeah, kind of the hilts.
Yeah, kind of the hilts. And I'm going to go with the same answer I went with that one. I'm going to go with Dooku.
Dooku?
Dooku has that whole classic design.
That curve.
It's like curved hilt.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like Palpatine's, actually.
Yeah, Palpatine's is actually the look of it.
Palpatine's is actually really cool. I think a lot of people overlook that, but it's really cool design.
And I like how he kind of had his concealed in the robe on that little
like
on that little slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of just pops
You got to
up.
wonder how long that's been there. I mean, has it been there the whole time?
Exactly.
Because you would think that he would just be so tempted to use it on a number of occasions.
Oh, yeah. For me, I think I'm going to go with Maul.
The old dual bladed.
Yeah. I think I'm a little bit biased just because, in the martial arts world, that was my weapon of choice. And I think it's just because it's offensive and defensive at the same time. And it gives you so much.
That's why I kind of wish that they had done Rey's lightsaber as a double-bladed, like, light side. So instead of the dual red, it's like dual blue or green or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I just think that would have been kind of a cool... Because right now, all you've seen is Maul wield that. It would have been cool that because Rey fights with a staff, that it would just seem like a natural extension. Who knows? Maybe she does build one. Yeah,
I love the Maul one because you can... The different things that you can do with it, even in it was when he fought Palpatine that one time on Clone Wars?
Yeah, it would have had to.
Yeah, Clone Wars. Yeah, when he repaired and he fought Palpatine, and he did the trick where he turned off one side and then reactivated again.
Oh yeah.
So I thought that was like you could be really sneaky. That was cool.
That was cool.
I mean, it almost caught Palpatine off guard a little bit with it, but I love that. I love how he even used the actual hilt part to kind of distract Qui-Gon for just a moment just so he could stab him and just...
Well, and I think the cool thing about that lightsaber is that you could use it as a single-bladed lightsaber if you want.
Because that's how he initially fought Qui-Gon when they first met. He used only one side of it.
Mm-hmm. But I think the cool thing, too, which is an extension of that, is the Dark Rey lightsaber.
The whole, like, pocket Swiss knife thing.
Yeah,
I called it.
Like the Swiss Army saber or whatever. Yeah, I mean, the way that it just kind of folds out. So in a way, I guess we do get her wielding a double-bladed lightsaber. I mean, we don't know what the context is going to be, obviously, but, does that count as a Sith lightsaber? Who knows?
Yeah, I guess. Good point.
But, I mean, there's others. that I'm forgetting probably because there's a lot that are in Legend. Well, there's a lot that we see here too.
Yeah, like the Vader examples. One, of course. Yeah,
well, the Vader one's a classic.
One.
It's a classic, and I think the funny thing though is that when you look at the design, it's not all that spectacular. It's just the fact that it's Darth Vader's lightsaber, and he was the first guy that we saw wield a red lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly.
Maul's, of course, is really cool.
Revans.
Dooku, I really liked. Revans is really cool. I'm trying to think of who else. There's all these Sith Lords that, there's Bane, there's, of course, Exar Kun, but I don't actually remember too much about their lightsabers.
Wismajig kind of took after Dooku, though, but even though she's not a Sith, technically, but Asajj Ventress.
Asajj Ventress?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that she actually had two, and she was actually kind of masterful with it, just kind of like how Ahsoka was.
She was basically, in my opinion, kind of a dark side Ahsoka type.
Yeah.
But definitely.
But she kind of, but see, that's the thing, and this is what I've noticed about the Jedi and Sith, is like you kind of model your lightsaber after your master. It kind of has an homage to them.
Yeah, I think it's partially like you're modeling it after your master without question, but you're also like infusing it with your own personality and your own, you can almost tell people's, I don't know, I guess their character or whatever, just based on their lightsaber design.
Yeah, and it has to kind of fit because, like, of course, certain aliens, depending on how their hands are, or if they have like fur versus like,
or their fighting style.
Their fighting style too.
It's got to complement the fighting style.
True.
So a lot goes into a lightsaber design.
Oh yeah, I mean that's why when you look at Anakin's original, like the blue blade that Rey has now.
Yeah, the one that's been handed
down from everybody.
Like everybody's used that thing.
Yeah, even Han Solo.
Yeah, it's like who hasn't used that lightsaber at this point?
But you kind of look at his Sith lightsaber kind of looks like his original.
It does. I was actually going to point that out too. Is that his Sith lightsaber is kind of almost like a modification of his original one.
And how Obi-Wan's Episode 4 lightsaber is Luke based his green one off of Obi-Wan's.
I never actually noticed that.
Yeah, if you look at like Obi-Wan's from the A New Hope, it's in the same style as Luke's in Return of the Jedi, just a different crystal.
Be like Vader going, I see you've constructed a new lightsaber. It's like, I kind of know where you got this from.
Yeah.
It's very Obi-Wan of you.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think for me, though, my favorite would be Maul's.
You going to stick with Maul?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Maul.
Stick with Dooku.
All right.
I mean, it's an elegant lightsaber.
It is. For a very regal man.
Yes. I mean, I think that's it, too. I actually really love the character of Dooku because he was kind of like this aristocratic Sith Lord.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. He was like Mr. Belvedere had a lightsaber.
He was very regal and majestic and, just very proper. I mean, I always thought he was such a cool character. I wish he could have lasted beyond one movie.
Well, yeah.
I mean, he did.
1.5.
I know, yeah. 1.5.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, that character, though, I do love Dooku being kind of that aristocratic kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And it's like you very rarely saw him get angry, but you can definitely tell, especially in how they depicted him in the Clone Wars, like he was very intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
In that book that we read, when we were going,
Master and
Apprentice, like you really kind of got some of the background of kind of like how Dooku was with Qui-Gon, how intimidating he was.
Well, what was cool about that book was you actually got to see sort of what he was like as a Jedi.
Yeah.
And as a Jedi master, and how the Padawans would react. Yeah, he was really intimidating and, he was kind of nurturing and he was cool, but you definitely knew you wouldn't want to cross this guy.
Excellent. Absolutely.
And I actually wish that they would explore more of the Jedi Dooku because I'd like to see, the differences between, because you could tell, you see what he's like as a Sith and he's kind of like that as a Jedi too, so it would be interesting to to see the juxtaposition of that. All right, well, what about you guys? Do you guys have a favorite Sith lightsaber? Let us know in the comments section below,
or if you want to post a picture of it on Instagram.
Or post a picture of it on Instagram. That'd be cool. Find your favorite Sith lightsaber, post a picture of it on our Instagram at head2head SW. Love to see it. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our Duel of the Fates.
Yep.
We actually took different sides. We dueled, and perfect. It was from a lightsaber, too.
Yep.
So typical. So what do we got next?
Next, we have From a Certain Point of View.
All right. From a certain point of view.
Yep.
Now, this is basically our main topic for those of you guys who, maybe you've never listened to our podcast or... I've only seen, this is only like the 4th episode of season 2. And honestly, we only recently started doing the whole video version of this podcast again. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Let us know in the comment section what you guys think. If you have any, main topic suggestions or any suggestions, let us know. So what is our main topic today? Even though I already know because I announced it at the beginning. But
So The Mandalorian has a big spoiler. Now, there's a lot of, things that have been kind of circling around, but it has been confirmed basically that there is a big spoiler in the first episode of The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Now, what I found interesting about this is that they're saying that it's this massive, like, Star Wars universe spoiler. Like, it's going to take something that is, I guess, like a cornerstone of the whole Star Wars universe and just
flip it.
Yeah, it's going to completely blow us away. So it sounds like that this is kind of like an I am your father level thing. And look, as you guys know, The Mandalorian's coming out in a couple of days. So we only have like 2 days. And it's like on November 12th, which is on this coming Wednesday, like I said, 2 days, right? 6 a.m. is when Disney Plus is going to basically hit, and everybody can download all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we all think the spoiler is going to be?
Well, a lot of people are thinking it's going to have something to do with Jango. I mean, not Jango, Boba Fett.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people say that. Of course, some people...
See, I haven't actually delved into...
A lot of people think that that's Boba Fett.
Then what's Boba Fett?
The Mandalorian. Although a lot of people, but of course, Favreau and Filoni have basically said it's not Jango. I mean, I keep saying Jango.
I know.
Boba Fett. But a lot of people...
Ewan McGregor also said that he knew nothing about the Obi Wan series too, and we see how that went.
Exactly. So, you kind of have to but it would be cool because then it's like, well... he fell into the thing in the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi. So if he got out, now he's like, okay, the Empire, everything, the galaxy's kind of changed already because the Empire no longer exists. So now he kind of has to go back to his whole bounty hunting thing and try to.
Yeah. You know what? While I'm thinking about it too, I have to give credit where credit's due. This topic basically came from a good friend of mine and also one of our longtime listeners, Tim Grizankowski. He basically came up to me, because we were on a bowling league together, and he came up. He kind of reminded me of our other good friend, Patrick McIntosh, right? A lot of times, Patrick does this. Tim's done this a couple of times, where it's kind of like he came up and he was just like, hey, are you guys going to talk about this big spoiler on The Mandalorian? And I'm like, what big spoiler on The Mandalorian? I didn't really... He's like, yeah, it's been all over, whatever. So sure enough, he went and bowled his frame or whatever. And I, did what everybody does, went on Google and, typed in Mandalorian spoiler. Sure enough, man, there's
it's like a whole
7
thread.
articles.
Yep.
And again, kind of like what I do with Patrick. I'm like, how did I miss this? I'm supposed to be, and we were all joking about it. Me, another one of our longtime listeners and recent YouTube subscribers, Darren Kane, we're just laughing about it going, you know what? I'm supposed to be this host of this Star Wars podcast show, and I don't even know half of this stuff is coming out, right?
Yeah, well, some things just pop up. I mean, if you just look at stuff.
In my defense, I think it came up that day. I think it was that afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, because that happens to me too. You'll send me something. I'm like, huh? And then I'm like, oh, like I found out it's only been
co-host. I mean, that's just funny. Like Patrick, man, he's notorious for that stuff. Like he messages on our Facebook all the time, and he's just like, hey, did you hear, what do you guys think of, whatever? And I'm like, I didn't even know it happened.
Yeah.
But, or, did you hear about the latest whatever? Nope. Why don't you tell me about it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what we want all you all to do, honestly.
We love that, though. Yeah, I mean, let us know. I mean,
there's something we haven't covered, or
there's something we haven't covered or whatever. Let us know what.
We're here. Well, yeah, I think in Mandalorian it could. I don't think it's going to be the Boba Fett thing, though. I don't either. I honestly think that would take away from it. Yeah, but a lot of people have been saying like Mara Jade is actually kind of supposed to be
okay. Now that I could see.
Yeah, I heard they're supposed to be retconning some stuff.
Well, it's got to be something from Legends.
Yeah, it's definitely something from Legends.
So I mean, I'm thinking it's either something from the Unknown Regions.
Some people might say Thrawn might be. Yeah, Thrawn might be,
could do it. But here's the thing, though, and this is why I'm like, well, maybe, but they're saying that this is like the nuclear bomb of spoilers or something. I mean, this is like a huge, I guess, I don't want to say like life changing, but I mean, it's like a
Star Wars universe changing.
Yeah, it's going to change your whole perspective on maybe the main thread or a couple of other things in the whole Star Wars universe. And I was just trying to think of.
Well, I've heard also that we might actually hear about Snoke.
Well,
in this,
Snoke could be something that
which would be a big thing because everybody's been wondering.
We know where he's coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that might be, or we find out who he is and where he comes from and kind of.
Well, it's got to be because this takes place, what is it, like 5 years after Return of the Jedi or something?
Yeah.
So.
Because like I said, the galaxy is in shambles. And you got to think about it, like the galaxy is in shambles. The empire has fallen. Of course, you got those who were in the empire, the admirals and generals. Of course, they're still trying to maintain their control over their respective systems and things of that nature. But they're losing that battle on a lot of different fronts.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so now you have somebody that's like, okay, well, who's going to restore order? And that would be the perfect time to introduce Snoke.
The only thing is, though, maybe. So the Mandalorian's going to take place approximately 20 to 25 years before The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's conceivable that the First Order starts around that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's probably
in a way,
up to that, though.
Well, here's my thing. I think, and I mentioned this to Tim and Darren and everybody that I was bowling with because they're basically pressing me like, okay, well, what do you think? And I'm thinking, I don't know. I just got the news.
About 10 minutes ago.
Right. I really don't know. But let me think about this. So I think I mentioned to him that night that I think it might be something in the Aftermath trilogy, the novels, because Aftermath takes place in that time period. It takes place like right after Return of the Jedi, and it goes up pretty close to Force Awakens. Not quite to that point, but it gets close. So they could be bringing in something there. Now, I don't really remember anything that would be, that would actually change your whole views on the events of the entire Star Wars saga.
Mm-hmm.
But, it could have its roots in there because it definitely talks about Palpatine's contingency plans. It sets up a lot of people that are setting up the First Order. So naturally, you can cover that transition because I think that that's one of the things that everybody in the Star Wars fandom wants to know. It's like, well, okay, I get it. The First Order is kind of like the new Empire, but how did it transition from the Empire to the First Order? Why didn't the people who were in charge of the Empire just restart the Empire?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think that's a good place for Snoke to come in because...
Well, they do have to... I will admit this. They do have to explain at some point, whether it's a novel, comic, maybe we get a little blurb in the Rise of Skywalker, whatever, but we got to know where Snoke came from and what his place was.
Well, I think that would be the biggest thing, though, because
I agree.
If you do that in the Mandalorian, that's a story arc that stretches, like, okay, well then, I don't know if we'll see, we might hear about, Han Solo, Kylo. Mm-hmm. We might hear about these people, like what they're doing on the, outskirts or whatever. And I think that would be a good place where, like I say, for you to start to establish, okay, because Snoke has to rally everybody. Everybody has to find somebody to kind of bring them all together again. No different than the Resistance with Leia. Like, okay, Leia had to bring everybody back together and say, hey, we have this threat. So now it's like, okay, what's going to happen with this huge empire? Somebody's got to take control because we're so used to having control. And so when we see The Force Awakens, of course, the First Order has already been established. They got ships. Everybody who knows Han knew who Snoke was at the time already. So obviously he has been around prior to. We just don't know how far.
Well, I'll tell you what I love about that theory is the fact that you remember how we've always been talking about that they can explain a lot of this stuff, but the problem is that novels, comics, not everybody reads those.
Right.
The cool thing about it is they've got this new television format.
That's
now.
A flagship show already.
That's a flagship show that they could actually get even casual fans. Like, people will watch it. This is the perfect medium
exactly
to go into these kind of details because it's not basically so outside like the comics and novels where you would only get like some really hardcore fans doing it. So you could actually cover more of these things. And
you bring up a very good, very, very good point, because I think that everybody's been saying, I think this is the future of Star Wars in a sense, because you can essentially explain and you can do way more character development over an arc of 8 episodes that are an hour. So basically you got an 8-hour movie,
right? As
opposed to 2.5 hours where you got to try to introduce all these characters, get them on a mission. What's the goal? What's the objective? How do you complete it?
And here's the other thing that you can look at too is the fact that, even people that aren't really into Star Wars, right? They're subscribing to Disney Plus. Maybe they like the Marvel stuff, or, maybe they just want to see Disney's incredible catalog of movies or something. They might go, I'm not really into Star Wars and not really, but you know what? I'll check out this Mandalorian show. Why not? Right? Mm-hmm. This is where you can bring in future fans, somebody that maybe never really cared about Star Wars, all of a sudden becomes a fan. Like,
and it ties everything in too, because like if I'm going to the movies, if you're just a casual fan where, like you said, you just go to the movies and watch it, and like, all right, I saw Force Awakens, I saw Last Jedi, I'm waiting on Rise of Skywalker. Okay, well, who's the the funny Freddy Krueger looking dude in the chair? Yeah. Okay, right. I don't know anything about him. I'm not about to go out and read books.
Yeah, right, and get the whole backstory. I mean, it's so funny too how.
But now you got this show.
Yeah.
Or shows that are forthcoming that will fill in those gaps for you. And it's like, okay, so now those casual fans plus the hardcore fans, like everybody's like, and it gives something for people to talk about out at the water cooler. No different than, when you're watching Game of Thrones. And I think that's what left a big void in people right now too, is that, Game of Thrones was the highest rated show for like years. Power on Stars is the next show that they kind of competed with Game of Thrones. That's about to come to an end in January. So now what's going to be the show that everybody's going to Empire on Fox? That's done. So what's going to be the next
water
thing?
Cooler show? Exactly.
And the Mandalorian has that. It has the makings of everything, because it has that Lone Ranger Old West vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at the trailer, man, I mean, it's just like, all right, it's gunslinging. It's probably going to have some romantic stuff going on in there.
It's Star Wars, but it doesn't.
Without the lightsabers.
Yeah, it would appeal to people that maybe have a negative stigma towards Star Wars. And this is really funny, too, because I don't know if this has happened, but have you ever taken somebody to see any of the Star Wars movies And you're just bewildered by the comments that they make. Like, how did you even get this out of that? I mean, they don't know. It's like, were you watching the same movie as I was? I mean, how could you not understand this? Like, they'll have these, like, weird, yes. I guess.
Primarily women.
Yes.
That's who I go to the movie.
Yes, and that's basically.
Yeah, that's what we're saying, but not saying.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have these odd viewpoints, and they're. It's like, how did you even get that out of this? Don't you understand what? And how could you misunderstand this? How could and that's the thing. And I think that maybe these TV series like The Mandalorian, like the upcoming Obi Wan, Cassian Andor, the rumored Darth Maul series that's coming out. Mm-hmm. They announced a few actually, but it's going to be interesting to see where the future of Star Wars goes. They'll always have the movies. Star Wars is definitely a film type of experience. You got to experience it in the theaters.
Definitely.
But I really think that a lot of the foundation of Star Wars could be rooted in these streaming series. Television seems to be where they're spending a lot of their time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, to your first point, as far as, dealing with people who've never seen or when you take them to go see a Star Wars movie and they're just kind of like, okay, what the heck is this? And I don't get it.
Yeah, or they'll just have these like odd interpretations of the events. And you're just like, no, that's not it at all. How could you? Did you watch the same movie as I did?
Right.
Here, let's watch it together again, and this time I'll talk you through it. I'll coach you.
Yeah, exactly. It's that TED Talk thing or something.
Yes.
But, yeah, I mean, I think for people who really don't understand Star Wars or who really aren't, well, one, you have to get, most women aren't really into science fiction anyway. Science fiction or science fantasy.
Honestly, I think more than anything, that's why you see all these female-led characters in Star Wars now, because Lucasfilm is like, let's bring in female fans.
Well, I think they're trying to bring in female fans, female perspective on things. And I think that there's stories that you can tell. One, of course, it empowers young girls. Like, they see a Rey, and they're like, yeah, I want to be, a hero. Like, it doesn't have to be Wonder Woman or all the time. It could be somebody in this particular world who, like, if you are there's no different in Star Trek when they did Captain Janeway. Like, that was like, okay, everyone's like, whoa, a female captain? I don't know. But then she comes out and you're like, hey, she's pretty cool. So I think that's where.
Well, I think that's the biggest. Moving. I think the biggest compliment that I've always been able to pay in that regard anyway, is when, they're trying to make a big deal. Okay, it's a female this or a female that. It's like, if you forget and they're just that character, like Rey is just Rey. I don't think about the whole, she's a female hero.
Exactly.
It's like, no, she's Rey.
As long as I can believe in her and who this character is, I'm sold.
Yeah, that's about the only thing that, I really hope the Rise of Skywalker kind of goes into why Rey is as powerful as she is, because I got to admit, man, I've been having some issues. Like, I'm right on the edge where I can hang on to it. I can suspend my disbelief enough that I can overlook it. Like, I can overlook my issues, but they are there.
Well, I mean, but it has nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman. It just has to her character.
No,
it could have been a guy, and he's like, okay, why is he this?
Well, and that's,
it could have been Finn, and you're like, okay, well, who the heck?
Well, and that's basically it. Exactly. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's not a gender thing. It's, but I mean, that's what I'm saying is that other than that, I don't think of her gender. So same thing. Even Princess Leia, I never, and that would have been when it was a lot more rare to see, because, I mean, let's face it, by the time we had the character of Rey, we've had, like, female assassins running around and, beating up everybody in sight. You've had, look, 24 had a lot of female villains that were, beating the crap out of all the guys. And
even the conversation you and I had one day in the studio, and we brought up Cynthia Rothrock.
Yeah.
That's
I do remember.
So, I mean, we've had, like, female action heroes all the way from Pam Grier to, all types of stuff.
And the Mandalorian's got plenty of female
MMA fighters.
Yep.
I mean, it's...
So, I mean, we're going to see a lot of that stuff. And I think that that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But, once again, I don't necessarily think that... I don't think that it's necessarily like this whole gender equality thing as much as I think they were brought in to attract the female fans.
True.
Simply because, like you said, Star Wars everybody was into it as far as a pop culture thing, but I think guys are the ones that are really like more into Star Wars than women. Like, guys tend to be more obsessive with it.
Yeah, no different than our superheroes and stuff anything else.
But if you think about it, though, that's what the Marvel Cinematic Universe in particular has done absolutely right. Is like women are every bit as obsessed with it.
Exactly.
Of course, it's because you have all these like shirtless hero guys that are all, buffed out or whatever.
Chris Evans shirtless, and
you can understand why. It's kind of like, look, in the 70s, guys weren't watching Charlie's Angels because they thought it was a really good, or Baywatch, even though I actually like Baywatch's stories, but I digress.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I thought it was a really cool show. I mean, it wasn't... I know how that always looks or sounds or what, and every time I bring up Baywatch, everybody's like, really, dude? Come on. It's like, no way did you think that this cheesy thing was... But I did. I really did think... Like, I love the whole vibe of the show.
You know what this sounds like? This sounds like Austin Powers. Like, honestly, it's not my...
Yeah, I know, and I know how it sounds.
Right. I know.
It looks, and if you're watching this on YouTube. But, I mean, it's one of those things that it's that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, The Mandalorian.
Yeah. I think it's really going to have something to do with that's going to... Because what I heard is it has something to do with the sequel.
Oh, yeah, the spoiler thing. I was like, what were we even talking about? Yeah. You know what? It could be.
But honestly, I think it has something to do with Snoke. That's just my guess.
It has to be. I mean, the thing that's kind of funny about this is ever since Tim brought it up, and every time I think about it, I'm like, you know what? For the first time, I absolutely don't know what this could be.
Well, that's how we felt about The Force Awakens. We didn't know what that was going to be either.
Well, but I mean, the thing that kills me about this is the fact that it's like, it's a spoiler, but it's supposed to affect the whole, like, the way that you're viewing the whole thing. And I can't imagine what they would be revealing, number one. And what would they be revealing in the context of The Mandalorian? That's what's going to be weird.
The only thing that will suck is that we see it and we still don't get it. What was it?
You know what? I thought about that too. Like, what if it went over our heads?
Yeah.
We're like, did they not put it in there or what?
Well, you know what, though? If I'm not mistaken, the first episode, it's a two-parter.
Well, what they're doing is
it's 2 episodes.
So the one comes out, it's not Wednesday, it's Tuesday.
The other one comes out Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
So tomorrow is the debut of the first one. And then Friday...
Yeah.
We get the rest.
Right. So you got to figure out, is it the debut or which one has a spoiler, the first or the second?
I think it's the...
Gotcha.
Uh-huh. Very good. No, I think it's the first.
Okay. The very first one. Okay.
But what about you guys? What do you think this massive spoiler is going to be? You have basically 24 hours to let us know. Because we always release these at 6 a.m. on Monday. So 24 hours, leave in the comment section what do you think it's going to be. And you know what?
I wish we could put the 24 counter on there.
Yeah, I know. Next week, we'll probably talk about it.
Yep, definitely. We have to.
Yeah, we'll have to. I mean, it'll probably be like a Cantina segment or whatever, but we will talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, unless it's some like mind-blowing thing that we have to make...
A special one.
Yeah, some special thing, but, we'll get there. All right. Oh, it's now time for my favorite segment of the show.
Yes, it is.
Yes. This is where we actually answer your questions, and it's a segment that we like to call Clear Your Mind. That's right. Like I said, you guys submit the questions, we answer them. Who do we got first?
All right. The first question comes from Darius Bauer. Question is, what do you think about JJ dealing with the whole Reylo thing?
The Reylo thing. You know, so I wouldn't necessarily mind if that happened, but I would think that's a bit cliched. I think it would be better. I like the fact they had this connection in the Force. I like the fact that Snoke is the one that made the connection, but he, in essence, lost control, I guess would be the best way to put it. So I like that whole thread. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed if it turned into a whole romantic relationship thing. And there could actually be some really cool elements to that. Honestly. It would also, I think, go a little bit more toward the redemption arc. You know, it would make more sense for Kylo if he was going to be redeemed for love. You know, that's about one of the only things that I can think of that would make sense. I don't know if JJ's going to go there, though. You know, I just don't think that that's going to be... I don't know. It's hard to say because, you know, the trailer... Well, that was one of our biggest pet peeves. The trailer doesn't really reveal a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Reylo thing, I don't think it's going to... I think it's going to be a connection with them, but I don't think it's going to be romantic. I think...
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's just going to be like a... I don't know, like a deep Force connection. Because, you know, in a way, they both...
Well, and they kind of hinted towards it, like in the trailer when she's like, you know, when she made the line, when she says the line, you know, he knows me. He's like, but I do. And I think it's because they're connected. I think they kind of have that empathy for each other. Yeah. It's kind of like, I see your pain.
Yep,
you know,
they understand each other.
You.
You know, I mean, they both have a sense of abandonment. You know, because even though Kylo had his parents, I think he felt abandoned by Han because, you know, Han naturally went and did this whole smuggling thing again. Leia, of course, he probably always felt like he was taking a backseat to the Republic. And then, of course, Luke, you know, tried to kill him. So there is that.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I don't really see... I don't see the romantic thing, but I do see the deep connection thing. Yeah. And I think that that's where, you know, that JJ is going to go with it. And
that's something different that we haven't seen. That's the way of, in my mind, that's the way of doing something new and different within Star Wars without going overboard or going too far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? You think that, are we going to see a romantic Reylo type of relationship going? Or, you know, do you think it's going to be something a little bit more platonic, but still really deep? You know, let us know in the comments below. All right, who's next?
Yeah. The next question is submitted by Ivan Davis. The question is, do you think Palpatine wants to use Kylo and Rey to create a new Vader? I've heard this theory. And quite honestly, it's a good one, in my opinion.
Well, which one? There's a bunch of them floating around.
Well, this one, the whole... Okay, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, Rey is a clone or what have you. But then you have the purity of Kylo being a direct descendant.
So are we talking about we're using Kylo and Rey together
physically to create a child where he can now use, like, Palpatine is almost kind of
so okay.
You see what I'm saying?
So maybe there is a Reylo.
Yeah.
So basically it's like they would unite, have a child, and it's sort of like, the combination of their DNA or whatever would make like this perfect Sith baby or something. Yeah, it would be superpower, something that's super powerful. I mean, you got to think about that. That would be almost like the ultimate weapon. It would be cool, but I just don't think that that's where it's going. That just seems like for Star Wars a little bit too out there.
I think it's out there, but I think it's just the right amount of out there.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I think that if you look at the elements of the trailer, again, we don't really have much to go on except a bunch of really pretty cinematic scenes. But you obviously have Palpatine coming back. He has his army. It's kind of like he's coming back to reclaim what he felt was his.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what's going to happen is, Palpatine is going to give the first order, i.e. Kylo, like, you can join me or die. And Kylo's probably going to choose the latter because it's kind of like he feels he's the supreme leader. It's like, who's this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, then you got Rey in all this. She's trying to rebuild the Jedi. I think that Palpatine's definitely going to try to use Rey. May even try to use Kylo. There could be a thing to where he maybe tries to use them against each other, and whoever wins becomes his new apprentice, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think it would go more so than anything.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to try that at some point.
And the other thing is, I don't necessarily think the Sith baby thing would work out, but I do think that maybe he would try to get them both to be on his side.
Well, yeah, I think because I guess I'm kind of looking back. Why did he create Anakin in the first place?
Well, yeah, and it seems like he did, but that vision that was in that comic may not have been an accurate thing. It might have been Vader, some of his feelings got in there, and it wasn't 100% confirmed, although it does definitely seem implied by a lot of things the Emperor said in the movies. So,
I mean, because you got to think about it. It's like, okay,
it's not that
he studied, and one of the things is like, okay, he learned how to keep people from dying, and it's like, okay, but from what point of view? And it's kind of like, all right, if I can create life. So if I create this baby out of Shmi, and okay, now I can kind of.
If he did that,
right?
Yeah, if he.
But I believe that. I mean, I think that was confirmed already.
It was, and it wasn't really. It was in a comic, and that's why everybody went
canon,
crazy
because it was in a
but comic. It was a vision that Vader was having. It wasn't like it was some actual memory. It was kind of like a esoteric. Kind of thing. It's almost like
gotcha.
Saying that, Luke fought Vader on Dagobah. It's canon because it was in the movie. It's like, no, it was kind of like a.
I do have a question about that. One day I'll ask. Well, I might find it. I might write into our own show and ask that question. But
well, you might as well ask it now. It relates to this.
Well, why was it a failure at the cave?
Well, because Luke brought in the weapons, which he wasn't supposed to do. The whole idea of going into that cave was, because he was like, what's in there? And Yoda's like, only what you take with you.
Mm-hmm.
He took weapons.
Mm-hmm.
He was having conflict. So he basically faced Vader, killed him. He's using the dark side, using aggression. And then, of course, when the mask blows open and Luke sees his own face, it's kind of like, yeah, this is what you could become if you continue down this path. See, what he should have done was not taken any weapons, and he would have been tempted by the dark side, but he wouldn't have fallen for it. Because remember, Luke actually ignited his lightsaber first. He was ready for battle. He wanted to kill Vader. As far as he knew, Vader killed his father.
Was that the reason, or was he afraid of Vader?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't even matter. Fear or anger.
Yeah.
They're both
I know they lead to
failure under the dark side.
True.
I mean, and that's true. That would be a good, talking point, I guess, or something we could delve into further. But the overall thing is that was basically why it was a failure, and that's pretty much what happened.
Okay.
But,
yeah, I mean...
Our next question comes from Daryl Sanders.
Daryl asked.
Yeah, Daryl asked.
But no, I mean, I think that, it's a good... I like this theory. Of this
the theory is cool.
The whole Kylo and Rey, creating a new Vader. I mean,
yeah, I mean, again,
he said, you're coming together would be your undoing. Of course, we don't know what context or what that really means. But, I mean, in that context, you could kind of glean from that. Like, okay, what if that was, yeah, you thought you guys coming together was really going to stop me. But in fact, you're actually helping me, you know. And
that
would be the twist.
Look, I'll say this: the theory is definitely intriguing. Mm-hmm. It's intriguing. It's cool. I just don't think it's going to be. I don't think that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
You know, and that's pretty much. Unless I'm mistaken, that's what's being asked, right?
Yep.
So there you go.
What do you all think?
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think? Really, what do you guys think about any of this stuff? You know, because we love to hear from you guys. This being a discussion-oriented show, this is actually what we like. We like the back and forth. You know, we got a lot of people who listen to our show or now watch our show on YouTube, and they engage with us, and it's great. So, let us know what you guys are thinking. Remember to subscribe to the channel. And just hit the subscribe button below, hit the little bell so you get notifications on when we put up a new episode. I think that's going to do it for our show this week.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our show this week. Of course, tune in next week because I'm sure we're going to talk about this big spoiler that, is being revealed on The Mandalorian in a couple of days or tomorrow. Yep. So I always get my days mixed up.
Hey, man.
I know it happens. One day blends into the next. All right, that's going to do it for our show. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.